So, oh, I can't decide if that's too much light or not. I don't know. Maybe there's not too much. Okay. This today is The Tale of Two Bad Mice. And it's from the world of Peter Rabbit. And I never liked Peter Rabbit that much, but I always loved this one. So let's go. And you can see all the Peter Rabbit. I honestly feel like this is, there we go. That's much better. Okay. You can see all the Peter Rabbit world on the front page. There. We'll get this in a minute. Okay. The Tale of Two Bad Mice. Once upon a time, there was a very beautiful dollhouse. It was red brick with white windows, and it had real curtains, and a front door, and a chimney. It belonged to two dolls, called Lucinda and Jane. Sorry. At least it belonged to Lucinda. Jane was the cook, but she never did any cooking, because the dinner had been bought ready-made in a box full of shavings. There were 2 red lobsters and a ham, a fish and a pudding, and some pears and oranges. They would not come off the plates, but they were extremely beautiful. One morning, Lucinda and Jane had gone out for a drive. There was no one in the nursery, and it was very quiet. Presently, there was a little scuffling, scratching noise in the corner near the fireplace, where there was a hole under the board. Tom Thumb put his head out for a moment, and then popped it in again. Tom Thumb was a mouse. A minute afterward, Hunca Munca, his wife, I always thought she had a funny name, put her head out too, and when she saw that there was no one in the nursery, she ventured out on the oilcloth under the coal box. The dollhouse stood at the other side of the fireplace. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went cautiously across the rug. They pushed to the front door. It did not go fast. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went upstairs and peeped into the dining room. They squeaked with joy. Such a lovely dinner was laid out on the table. There were 10 spoons and lead knives and forks and 2 little chairs, all so convenient. Tom Thumb set to work at once to carve the ham. It was beautiful, shiny yellow streaked with red. The knife crumpled up and hurt him. He put his finger in his mouth. "It is not boiled enough. It is hard. You have a try, Hunca Munca." Hunca Munca stood up in her chair and chopped at the ham with another lead knife. "It's as hard as the ham at the cheesemonger's," said Hunca Munca. The ham broke off the plate with a jerk and rolled under the table. "Leave it alone," said Tom Thumb. "Give me some fish, Hunca Munca." Hunca Munca tried every tin spoon in turn. The fish was glued to the dish. Then Tom Thumb lost his temper. He put the ham in the middle of the floor and hit it with the shovel. Bang, bang, smash, smash. The ham flew into pieces, because underneath the shiny paint, it was made of nothing but plaster. It wasn't a real ham. Then there was no end to the rage and disappointment of Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca. They broke the pudding, the lobsters, the pears, and the orange. As the fish would not come off the plate, they put it into the red-hot, crinkly paper fire in the kitchen, but it would not burn either. Tom Thumb went up the kitchen chimney and looked out at the top. There was no soot. I think they're starting to realize it's not a real house. While Tom Thumb was up the chimney, Hunca Munca had another disappointment. She found some tiny canisters on the dresser, labeled rice, coffee, sage, but when she turned them upside down, there was nothing inside except red and blue beads. Then those mice set to work to do all the mischief they could do, especially Tom Thumb. He took Jane's clothes out of the chest of drawers in her bedroom, and he threw them out the top window. But Hunca Munca had a frugal mind. After pulling half the feathers out of Lucinda's pillow, she remembered that she herself was wanting a feather bed. With Tom Thumb's assistance, she carried the pillow downstairs and across the hearth rug. It was difficult to squeeze out of the mouse hole, but they managed it somehow. Then Hunca Munca went back and fetched a chair, a bookcase, a birdcage, and several small odds and ends. The bookcase and the birdcage refused to go in the mouse hole. Hunca Munca left them behind the coal box and went to fetch a cradle. Hunca Munca was just returning with another chair, when suddenly there was the noise of talking outside upon the landing. The mice rushed back to their hole, and the dolls came into the nursery. What a sight met the eyes of Jane and Lucinda. Lucinda sat upon the kitchen stove and stared, and Lucinda leaned against the kitchen dresser and smiled, but neither of them made any remark, because they're dolls and they can't talk. The bookcase and the birdcage were rescued from under the coal box, but Hunca Munca still has the cradle and some of Lucinda's clothes. And she put her baby mice in there. She also has some useful pots and pans and several other things. The little girl that the dollhouse belonged to said, "I will get a doll dressed like a policeman." But the nanny said, "I will set a mousetrap." So that is the story of two bad mice. But they were not so very naughty after all, because Tom Thumb paid for everything he broke. He found a sixpence under the hearthrug, and on Christmas Eve he and Hunca Munca stuffed it into the stocking of Lucinda and Jane. And very early every morning, before anybody is awake, Hunca Munca comes with her dustpan and her broom to sweep the dollhouse. The end. And just as a fun fact, this book, is 116 years old. Not this copy, but the book itself is 116 years old.